Welcome back to Cat Recaps. Chun-woo is a South Korean soldier who is going to be discharged in a few months. One night while he is on duty, the wind blows a paper his way. It is a lottery ticket and it ends up landing right in front of him. The photo on the ticket delights him so much that he decides to keep it. At the camp, everyone likes Chun-woo because he's good at most weird things like identifying the brand of milk just by tasting it. Chun-woo turns the TV on and the lottery channel appears to broadcast the winning numbers. Immediately, he remembers the ticket he found and reaches out for it. Coincidentally, all the numbers drawn match with the numbers on his ticket. At the canteen, everyone stares at him laughing and crying all together as he couldn't contain the joy of winning $6 million. I bet most people would act even worse. They all wonder if it's the spoiled milk he has been drinking, but his reasons are best kept a secret. Chun-woo then walks into the broadcasting room and takes a picture with the ticket. Just then, a North Korean soldier, Yun-hee, begins her daily duties, updating them on the weather forecast. When Chun-woo hears this, he begins to tease her about the archaic technologies they use in their camp. It hurts Yun-hee and she also throws shots back. Chun-woo finally wins the battle, telling her that she has 10 years more to go while he is getting discharged soon. At the South Korean camp, Chun-woo is reading a book. He flips the page to where he had kept the ticket and just then, the wind blows the ticket away. The ticket flies all the way to the North Korean camp and lands on the grass beside Lee Yong-ho, a North Korean soldier. He picks it up, examines it, and throws it away since he has no interest in it, but the wind blows it back to him. He then picks it up and shows it to Kol-jin, his colleague. Kol-jin knows a lot about lottery, so he immediately checks to see if the numbers match the latest drawn numbers. Kol-jin becomes speechless when he finds out that all the numbers match. Later at night, Chun-woo goes around searching for his ticket. He meets Yong-ho and he introduces himself to him. Yong-ho shows the ticket to Chun-woo and tells him to get the money for him for a 10% share. As soon as Chun-woo sees the ticket, he kneels down and thanks Yong-ho for finding his ticket. Yong-ho becomes confused when he hears Chun-woo saying that it's his. To prove that it really belongs to him, Chun-woo mentions all the numbers and Yong-ho tells him to meet him again in 3 days' time for a proper discussion. The next day, Chun-woo gets called into Captain Kang's office. Captain Kang thinks Chun-woo is having some mental problems because of how strange he's been acting lately. Chun-woo spells out his reasons for his recent behavior, but the captain still doesn't believe it. He calls up the hospital to report Chun-woo's case as critical. Chun-woo then shows him the picture he took with the lottery ticket, and this time, he believes it. Captain Kang and Chun-woo then discuss how they will meet Yong-ho for the ticket and how they will split the money should the other side refuse to hand the ticket to them. On the day of their meeting, Captain Kang says he'll use his share of the money to get a piano for his daughter and put his mom in a nursing home. Chun-woo, hearing that, decides to give him 15% of his cut and 10% to Manchul. Chun-woo then meets with Yong-ho and presents the South Korean Lost Property Act, which states that when you find someone's lost property, your compensation ranges from 5 to 20%. Yong-ho rejects Chun-woo's way of sharing the money, saying he can only do it with other South Korean soldiers, not him. Yong-ho and Kol-jin meet their political instructor on their way back. He points his gun at Kol-jin and asks him what he's doing outside at this time. Kol-jin, fearful at this point, spits out the truth, but the political instructor does not believe him. Yong-ho then comes in and explains it to his understanding and adds that he and Chun-woo are negotiating to split the money 50-50. The political instructor, hearing this, joins forces with them. The next day, Captain Kang sends a message to Yong-ho and his partners. When they get the message, they step out and communicate to them their planned next meeting place, the joint supply area. Later at night, the South Korean soldiers meet the North Korean soldiers at the joint supply area and they are fully armed. After some serious negotiation, they all decide that the South Korean soldiers get 30% and the North Koreans get 70%. Just when North Korea's political instructor is about to hand over the ticket to Captain Kang to cash it and bring their share, Yong-ho suspects that the South Koreans are playing with their minds. He immediately tells the political instructor not to give them the ticket because they won't bring them their share as agreed. As they fight over the ticket, they push the candle and the light goes off. The South Korean supply officer finds them and turns on the lights. After a brief conversation, they all find out that Chun-woo isn't the actual owner because he also found it just like Yong-ho did. The supply officer then suggests that they split it 50-50 since none of them there is the real owner. He again says that the North Korean soldiers should hand over the ticket to the South Koreans who will cash it. Since there might be some misunderstanding and trust issues, they decide to switch one soldier each. Chun-woo gets chosen to go to the North Korean side and Yong-ho to the South Korean side. At the North Korean camp, Yong-ho visits Yun-hee, his little sister, with some maize and joins her in milking the cow. Chun-woo begins to learn the North Korean way of speaking, and so does Yong-ho. They both memorize their lines, become perfect, and exchange their uniforms. The political officer then hands the ticket over to Captain Kong. For the rest of the day, they enjoy drinking wine made in North Korea and snacks and food from South Korea. At night, they play a little and finally switch places. The political officer and Captain Kong drink while Chun-woo and Yong-ho both share what they'll be doing with their lives after becoming rich. Chun-woo has always wanted to open a cow farm since he graduated from the Department of Animal Production. Yong-ho wants to buy a watch for his dad and support his sister's dream of becoming a singer. Manchul also teaches Kol-jin how to use a mobile phone to browse the internet since all he uses is a monitor. The next day, Chun-woo begins to live as a North Korean soldier. Yong-ho also enjoys being in South Korea since there is so much food to eat and the technology there is ahead of North Korea's. Manchul is in charge of getting the ticket cashed, therefore Captain Kong on purpose breaks his arm so that he can be transferred to a hospital in town. He gets his arm broken, hides the ticket in his boxers, and kickstarts with his mission of getting the money. At the North Korean camp, Chun-woo is filled with fear seeing the rigorous training the soldiers go through every day. He eventually gets called to demonstrate his toughness by putting a rock on his abdomen. The political instructor shows up after the first hit and takes him to the farm. Yong-ho also approaches a new recruit and teaches him how to polish his boots with spit. In the farm, Chun-woo learns from Yoon-chul that the animals in the farm are having a hard time reproducing. There, he decides to create the needed atmosphere for them to breed well. While they are still talking, Yun-hee shows up. Chun-woo becomes speechless seeing her. The soldier is already falling in love. At night, Chun-woo covers all the doors and puts on music and lights for the animals. The next day, the South Korean soldiers get trapped with a landmine. Yong-ho knows about it since the North Koreans had planted it. He takes his time and finally dismantles it. The soldiers applaud him for a good job done. At the North Korean camp, Yong-chul finds out that all the animals in the farm have started producing. The battalion commander is very pleased. He immediately promotes Chun-woo to a senior training school in another town. Chun-woo doesn't like the idea, so he, the political instructor, and Kol-jin steal some parts of the car which will be used to transport Chun-woo. Thinking that they have succeeded, the car surprisingly moves past them without any problems. Kol-jin then tells Chun-woo to accept his fate. At the South Korean camp, the chief comes in looking for Yong-ho to congratulate him for his bravery. When he finds him, he asks where he comes from and Yong-ho nervously mentions Hamburg, Germany. The chief then tells him to prove he's from there. Yong-ho thinks fast and recites a line from a German war movie he's familiar with. Captain Kong also pretends he understands and explains it in his own way to the others, which leads them to tears. Chun-woo is celebrated and later sent to the senior training school. Yun-hee stops them on their way saying his transfer has been postponed because he needs to teach them how to make the animals produce more. Chun-woo thanks Yun-hee for helping him, and through their conversation he finds out that Yun-hee is the one who has been broadcasting the weather forecast. Later, Chun-woo teaches her how to milk a cow and she also takes him along to broadcast a message. When she leaves, Chun-woo takes her diary and finds a photo of her, Yong-ho, and their father. Manchul makes it to the city and takes the subway as Captain Kong instructed. Manchul keeps feeling the ticket to make sure he hasn't lost it, but a lady takes a picture of him doing that, and in no time, the whole of Korea begins to talk about him. Back in the North Korean camp, the security instructor calls Yun-hee to his office. He asks her to sit and brings out a perfume and bottle of wine. Yun-hee doesn't feel okay, so she gets up to leave, but the security instructor pulls her back and throws her on the chair. Chun-woo sees this and goes to help her. Yun-hee isn't as weak as she looks. She lifts herself up and lands a few slaps on his face. She finally holds him up and slams him to the ground. Chun-woo meets her at the door and wonders how she handled him so easily. In the city, Manchul finds the bank where he'll be cashing the ticket, but the security notices him as the psycho soldier everyone is talking about and chases him out of the bank. Captain tries calling him via the phone, but he loses his phone whilst running. The security instructor goes to check who Chun-woo is after seeing his face. He finds out no soldiers came on the 16th, but it is written that Chun-woo reported on that day. He smells something fishy and calls Chun-woo for interrogation. He sends for Yun-hee so that she can find out who Chun-woo really is. When she enters, she pretends like she knows nothing about her brother's plan and begins to kick Chun-woo. When the security tries to calm her down, she hits so hard which makes him unconscious. The political instructor comes there and asks Yun-hee to accompany Chun-woo to the water supply area before the security instructor wakes up. He then signals Captain Kang that Chun-woo has been caught. Before Chun-woo leaves the North Korean camp, he says goodbye to Young-chul. Young-chul hands him the once-wounded boar's handkerchief which he used to tie its neck so that Chun-woo can remember the boar always, and finally sets the boar free to find his family. When the security instructor wakes up, the political instructor asks him to choose between receiving only part of the money or death. Before the political instructor could finish readying his gun to shoot him, he hits him in the head, causing him to black out. While all this is happening, Manchul is happily going around the city, eating and playing games. When Captain Kang spots the restaurant he is currently in, he gives the manager a call and asks to speak to him. Later, a man who has been following him since he entered the bank approaches him and asks if he wants to cash his lottery ticket. Mama Boar smells her baby's scent from the handkerchief Chun-woo is holding and begins to run to find them. Chun-woo and Yun-hee arrive at the water supply area to meet the others. Yong-hoo attacks Chun-woo when he notices that his sister is becoming close to him. While they are still arguing, Manchul arrives with the bag of money and narrates how he put fear in the lady who the man introduced to him and ended up taking the money from her instead. Just when everyone is enjoying the moment, the security instructor barges in and starts shooting. The soldiers plead with him to at least give them some part of the money, but he refuses. Just then, Mama Boar locates them through the handkerchief, scatters the whole place, and leaves with the money hanging around her neck. The security instructor runs after her to take the money and sadly gets blown up when he steps on the landmines. As they cry over the loss of the money they worked so hard for, Manchul begins to feel guilty and brings out the excess money he hid in his uniform. The faces of the others glow up, realizing that they can still help their families and work on their projects with the little money remaining. They then bid themselves goodbye and wish that they all become united. Subscribe to Cat Recaps for more interesting videos.